On today's episode of Locked On 76ers, Keith and I break down the sense of urgency that is so important for the Sixers and this Game 6 matchup against the Raptors on the road in Toronto, Canada. It's a big one. We discuss it next right here, Locked On 76ers.
You are Locked On 76ers, your daily Philadelphia 76ers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome. You are Locked On 76ers. I'm Devon Givens from 97.5 The Fanatic Radio in Philadelphia, alongside my co-host and partner, as always, Keith Pompey of the Inquirer.com, Sixers beat writer. Keith, in Toronto, Canada. What's happening, man?
What's good, man? What's good? North of the border, bro.
One more time, and you didn't want to do it. We didn't want you there, but there you are back in the six one more time.
I know. One more.
One more time, man. Man, this is what? Game number 5 in Toronto? Yeah, 2 games during the regular season, 2 last week, and now you get this one here tonight. So,
but 5 trips for you. We had a preseason game.
Oh, that's right, the preseason. Yeah. So, game number 6 here in Toronto, man. Well, listen, we got to thank everybody for making Locked On 76ers your first listen every day. And remember, Locked On 76ers is free and available on all platforms, including right here, where you can see us and you can look at us and you can dissect us and talk about us in the comments however you want to, right here on Locked On 76ers for YouTube. Keith, yesterday I had a chance to go to practice as you did before you boarded the plane to get to Toronto. And Doc Rivers talked about a lot of things post practice. And one of the things that he spoke about was the sense of urgency that was there for this team. Playing with the energy and the urgency that is needed in this game against the Toronto Raptors. What do you make of that, and why is it so important? Of course, Game 6, I think it kind of tells the story right there in it, but there is a big sense of urgency for this one, so we don't get a Game 7.
I mean, you're right. And you know, and I agree with him. I mean, we talk about it. And, you know, for people who saw the Sixers, they played with a sense of urgency in Game 1 and in Game 2. You know, Game 3, they were a little bit sluggish, but they were able to come back, right? I feel like after they went up 3-0, it went back to a little bit complacency. Like we're about to close out, we're this and that. And it may sound simple, but the energy that they played with those first 2 games, I mean, they just destroyed the other team. And I think that's what he's talking about. They got to come out and they got to play as if this is, excuse my French, but this is not French, but it's like it's the Super Bowl. You only get one chance, like Game 7, one opportunity, one chance to show what they can do. So, you know, I agree with Doc 100%. Everyone, Joel, he has to play as if, guess what? Yeah, my hand hurts, but I'm gonna be off for the next 4 months after this game. One of those type things.
Right.
So I get it.
No, I do too, because you're right, man. We've talked about it plenty. But it was good to hear the coach say that. Now they have to follow up with it. They're saying it publicly. Danny Green, he spoke as well. He had a chance to express his thoughts on some things, answer some questions, talked about how, again, matching, we heard in the beginning of the series, matching their intensity. But what we saw was we saw the Sixers being the aggressor and Toronto having to match their intensity because they were the ones that had that sense of urgency and the energy that was there. Toronto was just playing free and playing loose and no care in the world right now because they're not supposed to beat the 76ers. Even though it's an even pick-em 4-5 series, they weren't supposed to beat the Philadelphia 76ers, as we've talked about with the MVP, James Harden, that trade coming down, a second All-Star, the emergence of Tyrese Maxey, Tobias Harris playing solid basketball, but just as a team overall, one that has been at the top of the Eastern Conference for a majority of the season, Toronto Raptors weren't supposed to beat the 76ers. But because of the style of play, the matchup in general, a lot of prognosticators said that Toronto could beat the Sixers. You picked them to beat them. I had the Sixers in 7, but what we saw was a close series. But as it has turned out, it didn't need to turn out to be the close series that we thought it was based on how it eventually kicked off with a 3-0 advantage by the Sixers, and they took their foot off the gas. We talk about it a lot in game where the point total drops. They're up 20. Next thing you know, the team is back in the game. Maybe they're taking their foot off the gas. As you said, gotten a little complacent in the moment, while the Raptors ramped it up a little bit because they're playing free and loose, as Doc Rivers, to quote him, or Danny Green, I don't remember which one it said. Sorry, guys. One of you said it. Free and loose in this game, in this series, where they're right back in it with this 3-2 on their home floor tonight.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And that's what it is. They got to do that. They got to bring the hammer, so to speak. That way it would also quiet the crowd. It will doubt would start seeping in, so to speak. So yeah, I agree 100% with Doc said.
And look, no Fred VanVleet, at least he's still doubtful for the game. We'll see by game time. He'll be a decision game time at that point to see where he is. But Keith, this is the time. This is it, right? You don't want to come back home for a game 7. The only time you want to be back home with Miami now already knocking off the Atlanta Hawks, you want to be back home for game number 3 for the second round matchup. You do not want to come back for game 7 here in Philadelphia. So they have a lot to do tonight, and we hope that they come out and start off the game fast and quick and under better control where they're protecting the basketball. That sense of urgency and energy is very important. We also need to talk about, and this podcast today, Keith, is a lot of what they had to say, during their post-practice session, and a lot of it again was pace and space. So we'll get to the pace and space conversation of it all for the Sixers when we get back right here, Locked On 76ers.
Yeah, we're going to talk about pace and space, but also I want to talk to y'all about Bet Online, right? You know, Bet Online is a thing that right now the playoffs are in full swing. You know, you have Major League Baseball, you have a lot of other sports, right? So what you need to do is you just go to Bet Online and you can just, wager. You can bet on any game you want. For me, there's only one place that has you covered and one place we trust. That's Bet Online. So what you need to do is sign up today for a free account at betonline.ag and use the promo code Locked On for your 50% welcome bonus. So that's something that you can do. But I'm telling you, man, like D knows, I watch games if I'm not falling asleep, but I watch games. I do a lot of things. And, I'm not really a betting man, but I'm always like paying attention to lines and everything like that because it tells you a little bit about it. But like I said, what you need to do is go to Bet Online, sign up today for a free account at betonline.ag and use that promo code Locked On for your 50% welcome bonus. I'm telling y'all, do it today, people. Do it today.
Welcome back here on the Locked On 76ers podcast. Make sure it's your first listen. For your next listen, check out the Locked On Now podcast for nightly recaps of every NBA game with analysis from our local experts. It's free and available wherever you get your podcast. And Keith, I don't think they turned the lights off on me here in the office. So you see what you get to see. That's it. But listen, man, the pace and the space of the game, it seems like the advantage has gone to the Toronto Raptors. The 76ers agree with that. And Doc Rivers spoke about it as well yesterday post-practice. And when we talk about the pace and the space, that's when we get to the transition opportunities. They get out more quickly. Toronto does. When the ball's coming out of the net after a make, they're running and pushing the pace and getting up the floor. They're pushing it. They're trying to control the pace where the game is, again, where they want it to be. And the Sixers need to turn that around and not to conform with what they are doing. And, again, try to get them back like we saw in games 1 and 2, back at it one more time, playing the way the 76ers want to play. The pace needs to be better. And in the half-court set, the spacing needs to be better for the shooters to get their looks, for your drivers in Maxey and Harden to get to the basket, and obviously for Embiid to work quicker with the basketball to get some easier buckets.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And they have to, get it out there because, see, what they're doing is they're slowing it down. And by them slowing it down, it basically takes the ball out of their hands. Like they're doing a 24-second shot clock. That's a possession that the Sixers are losing. They're just slowing it up. So I agree with you, 100%. And then another thing is, like you said, Maxey, it takes the ball out of his hands. Like he gets out and go, he needs to do that. But it's tough to do that when basically, you're the only person. I mean, it's tough to do that when they slow the ball down. And like, here's the deal. They're playing with 4 power forwards in the shooting guard.
Yeah.
If you do that, you don't want to get into a track meet with a bunch of guards or athletic guys. You know what I mean? So, I agree 100%. Now, the one thing is typically, typically teams like to get out and run against the Sixers because they want to tire, Joel and they want to tire Joel Embiid.
Yeah.
But it just seems like the banging, the pounding, all that other stuff was just basically working out well for them, right? But it's one of those deals where I think that the 76ers, their best bet, they just got to keep running. I mean, you got to tire. Like, if Joel gets tired, what you do is you see B-ball Paul, you'll say, hey, Paul, you know what? We're going to need you to keep running to the rim. Just do whatever. And if it's one of those things where the 76ers, like, they make a couple mistakes, they do this and that, I think you just have to live with it because that's Tyrese's game. Tobias Harris is a pretty good athletic power forward. He gets out there, he does certain things. He plays well. He's more of a mobile forward than he is like a half court type of guy. So with that being said, that allows him to be able to get in his space, get his spots and things like that. So, yeah, I mean, the 76ers, they benefit a lot from that. They really do. Now, D, the one thing that I also want to talk about is when you get, let's say, a guy like, let's say Danny Green. Sometimes you think that, hey, maybe us running all the time and doing this and doing that, maybe that might hinder him because he's an older guy. But I think that he can get out and run too. I mean, maybe not to the speed you like, but in regards to like trailing, he's fine.
Yeah, he can trail, he can get to those spots. But to your point, when you're running like that, his spacing is important, and especially in the transition. He'll hash, he'll hit each hash on each side or run to the corner and find his spot. And Danny Green is pretty good at that. So I agree with you, man, that pacing is really important with what they do. And obviously to get Joel Embiid some easier looks. And he'll get the double teams, all those things will come his way. But for them to have that spacing for him to operate, and they're not collapsing as quickly because they can't leave. And if they have that deep recover, maybe their teammate will pick up some of the slack and they'll just rotate defensively and get back to help out their man. But there are a lot of ways, of course, James Harden getting his opportunities while he's not blowing by anybody, he can still get past them or get them on his hip or his back and still get a shot off. They're athletic, they can recover and block it, but he might also draw that foul. Tyrese Maxey, we know when he has that ball in that space and he's able to use that speed, use his angles, he can absolutely get some shots off as well. And that'll all work out for the 76ers. So the pacing, the spacing, as Doc Rivers talked about, really, really important in this game as well, because right now it seems like the better team in doing it has been the Toronto Raptors. And you also mentioned a really good point too. When they're bleeding the shot clock the way that they're doing, getting it down to 22, that's just it's just taking time off where the Sixers will not have the possession. And if they get a quick shot off, then again, Toronto's coming down now and they're just bleeding the shot clock again, trying to get a much better shot. So the pacing, spacing, I'm glad that they said it and it wasn't just us talking about it. I'm glad that they said it because it is really important. And, just forget about the numbers. We see what we see when we watch the game. And clearly you can see that they're more comfortable with how the pace of the game is going, the lack of space for the Sixers, the turnovers that are being caused with those spacing. And while they'll get shots off, they need to make sure that they have operated the right way, executed properly. The spacing is there for them to get it done the way that they need to. Keith, on our final episode, not episode, it's not a final episode, it shouldn't be. On our final segment there, we need to talk about something else that Doc Rivers talked about. When we speak about James Harden, he laid it out perfectly for us, the amount of possessions that his point guard, the percentage that his point guard has in each game. And while it's not a problem, it's a problem what's happening with the percentage of possessions that James Harden has for the 76ers. We'll get to that next, right here, Locked On 76ers. And I got to tell you, folks, about the great Built Bar. Been telling you about it. And I hope you guys have taken a little bit of what we've been saying and going out there and checking out the Built Bar. 100% real chocolate. You can replace your candy bar, your pastries, whatever it is that you eat on the go. A lot of us, we're busy, whether it's work, kids, school, we're on the go. If you're playing some athletics and you want to get something in your system and not have an empty stomach, but still, not putting too much on you, the Built Bar is the way to go. They have the puffs. They are very good. They're protein-infused marshmallow. They're fluffy. They're marshmallowy. They are coming in different flavors from yummy cinnamony, churro, coconut marshmallow, banana cream pie. So good. Mint brownie, coconut almond, and for this month, the new white chocolate cookies and cream. 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, and 17 grams of protein compared to 240 calories, 30 grams of sugar, and dozens of net carbs from a candy bar. You'll be blown away by how this looks when you check out built.com and scroll down to the macro chart about the protein, the low calories, high fiber, and low carbs. I encourage you, please go check it out. I've done this. All the Built Bars are covered once again in 100% real chocolate, including the puffs. So don't worry about it. Compare it to your candy bar. You'll love it. They're all delicious. New flavors are coming out all of the time. If they can think of a flavor that might be good, they'll make it. It will be delicious, and it will be good for you. So go ahead, go to built.com, use promo code LOCKED15, and get 15% off your order using promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at built.com. Okay, welcome back. And Keith, this one really got you. We looked at each other when Doc Rivers said it after the fact. We were there and we looked at each other and it was, whoa, I didn't realize it was that much. He mentioned how James Harden possessed the basketball more than anybody in an offensive possession for the Sixers. And the number was startling, quite frankly. Yeah, it was startling. Why it's important for them to get this right when it comes to how much James Harden possesses the basketball.
Yeah, I mean, the number is 63% of the time that the Sixers had the ball. James Harden had it 63% in his hands, 63% of the time. And the thing about it that I really liked, I said it's good that they get it right. But the one thing that I liked that Doc Rivers said was because, he was asked, do you want him to be more aggressive? And he said, yes, but that doesn't mean just shooting the ball. And I'm like, yeah, go ahead, Doc. Because the deal is, we all talked about it. James right now, his shot isn't really meshing the way it should be, but he's a heck of a facilitator. And with that being said, he can set everyone up. He can do a lot of different things. And I think that's where his aggressiveness is going to come from, or the Sixers are going to benefit from, because, and he has to do a lot of things, man. He has to do the bounce passes. He has to zip the ball to people. He got to do a lot of other things. And that's going out there and people thinking we're going to see ISO James, boom, 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 boom. Nah, that's not working right now. So he has to get more people involved. Something else that Doc Rivers said was, he's playing with better teammates.
Yeah.
Which is true. So that's why you don't like. It's not good to do all that. It's best for him to get more guys involved.
It's not necessary.
It's not. Yeah, it's not necessary. Well,
Right.
and the thing is, like, here's the deal. Like, it's not necessary, but also when you look at it, you say to yourself, like, there's no ball movement. This is a team that everybody, like, Tobias thrives with ball movement. People making the extra pass. Like, he's not one of those guys that stops and he fires it. He passes it. He gives up a good shot for a great shot, but he also expects the same thing. And when you're doing boom, 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 everybody's just watching. They might as well just go back on D, right? So yeah, you're right. But what's your opinions of it?
No, I at first I didn't realize the number was that high. At, plus 60% that he's possessing the basketball. And look, he is a point guard, so you would think that he would have it a majority of the time, but you would also think that Joel Embiid is the one that is touching the basketball the most. But then I can also look at the other side when the double teams are coming. He's getting the ball out of his hands, and he's not a guard. So that was interesting to me. And he is a facilitator, and he's really good at it. He needs to be a better scorer for them right now. Doc Rivers said it doesn't necessarily have to result for him into his direct points, but I do want to see a few more points, especially when it's calling for the situation, when it's calling for the moment where he can help out his teammates. When Embiid is struggling, if Maxey is struggling at this point, and Danny Green is streaky, and he's already heavily reliant on everyone else getting him the basketball, the one other player outside of Maxey that you can count on and is possessing the basketball is James Harden. So I would hope that he is not worried about and just get that out of his head, that it doesn't have to be that bang, 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 and then make a move. It can be one dribble, two dribble, and then make a move, because they're kind of expecting you to do that way because they've seen you for so many years, and that is part of your habit. That is part of your routine of how you do things. And the other part of it is when he's possessing it for that long and that amount of time because of how long he's holding the basketball. If he does that, and I've talked about this, Keith, with you before, and the listeners as well, the viewers, getting to that mid-range spot and just hitting a jumper. The first 2 points of the game, he did that. He got to a spot, he pulled up, he nailed it. And that was encouraging to me because I thought that was something when we speak about the high-level play of he and Joel Embiid that he brought up, and we talked about it again. That's a high-level basketball play. Understanding what the defense is giving you. They're trying to take away the three because they know what you do. The drive as well. Well, drive. Surprise them and pull up. Do it again. Do it again until they stop you. And then you have to then counter and find another way. But he has to continue to, while he moves the ball, he's averaging 10-plus assists in this series. He cannot possess it that much because it then gets stagnant. And the Raptors aren't working as hard. Yes, they're moving because the other players do have to move because of the actions that are being called for them to move, but they're not getting it. So at some point, they're like, all right, we done ran the play. Now what are we supposed to do? Because you still have the basketball. So, yeah, he needs to do that. And I want to point this last one out before we go. That one play that we talked about after Game 5, Keith, where Embiid had the ball about 33 feet away from the basket at the hash mark. He was waiting for Harden to come back. They were coming at us where we sit in the second half, and he's talking to Maxey in the corner, trying to figure out whatever he thought the play was. Meanwhile, Embiid is calling for him to come back to get the basketball to run the play. So I hope that he's figuring out all the stuff that's out there since he's the point guard and knows all the plays at this point, because it's important for them to be, again, one of the words I used after the loss was they weren't sharp. They need to be sharp. He's the point guard. He needs to make sure that they are sharp. Everything is crisp. The passing is precise. And they don't turn the basketball over. And a lot of that, especially when you're handling the ball, 63% of the time in the possessions that Doc Rivers is talking about, he has to be the one to make that change. As a veteran as well, when you have a young player like Tyrese Maxey who handles it a good amount of time as well. So, I don't know, Keith, if I had to put you on the spot, man, how do you feel about this game tonight as we talk about it right now?
As we talk about it right now, I think the Sixers are going to win. I do. I mean, I just feel like, the Sixers are that team where whenever we always say, oh, they made it, they have arrived, then all of a sudden, wow, they lose, they do a clunker. And then once everybody gets off the bandwagon, they like, hey, don't forget about us. We're back. And I think this is one of those moments. I think that they were embarrassed the last game, and they're going to come out. Yeah, they should be, but I think they were, and they're going to come out and they're going to try, and they're going. I'm not going to say they're going to blow them out, but I see them winning this game. I do see.
Yeah. For me, I'll be honest. I still don't know. I still don't know how I feel. They left me uneasy after those last two games, specifically Game 5. I'm a little uneasy with how they played, how they attacked the moment that was presented to them. Oftentimes we talk about it. I talk about it on the radio show. You call in, and we talk about it off the air. We talk about it on this podcast. I'm a big believer of how things happen, and how it happened has left me uneasy with how they've done things over the last two, and specifically Game 5. So I don't know, because this version of this team with James Harden as well, I don't know how to respond under pressure like this. And so I don't know. So I have no idea how it will all play out tonight. I hope that they end it, because I want my Saturday off. And I don't want to go to the arena for game number 7. I want to get ready for Monday in Miami and deal with that. I'm sure we'd have to probably go to practice on Saturday, but that's about it. Other than that, I don't know how I feel about the game tonight. I still do believe that they are the better team and they're supposed to win this series. But the last 3 games, again, you can argue that the Raptors have played and taken control of this series with Embiid hitting that game-winning shot. Toronto had that game, it seemed, in hand for quite a bit. The Sixers showed great resolve, and they came back and won it. But certainly games 4 and 5 they've been the better team in this series. So I don't know. I hope that the Sixers end it tonight. And we're talking about this tomorrow, a Sixers victory, wiping our brows and our forehead and saying, whew, that was tough. Now let's get ready for another tough series in round number 2. Can't end this way, Keith. Cannot end this way.
Nah, it can't. I hope it doesn't. So.
Well, we got to thank everybody once again, as always, for making Locked On 76ers your first listen every day. And tomorrow on this episode, on our Locked On 76ers, our next episode, we'll recap the game. Hopefully, we're talking about a Sixers victory, where we're moving on to the next round of the playoffs. The Sixers are, and how things played out in game number 6. But for your next listen, your second listen, make sure it's Locked On NBA, Locked On experts covering the biggest stories around the NBA every Monday through Friday in less than 30 minutes. It's free and available wherever you get your podcasts.
And look, I want you guys to, like my man said, it's free and available wherever you get your podcasts. But do yourself a favor. And I ain't going to say that because that sounds kind of crazy. It sounds kind of arrogant. But no, we would like for you guys to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Locked On 76ers YouTube. Yes, the podcast is great, listening in the car, doing a lot of other stuff. But this one, you get to see us and you get to see our facial expressions. You get to see us move from room to room when the scenery is
when the lights go out.
When the lights go out. Yeah. So do that. What you do is just click on the Liberty Bell and subscribe to it, and you'll get it 5 days a week, sometimes more, depending on when the Sixers play.
Yeah. And I've been in this office for many years, and I still don't know how to work the lighting in this in the area. So my mistake, folks. Again, this is live. This is what happens. The lights go out because they're sensor related, and I don't know how to turn them back on. But listen, Keith, thanks, man. Enjoy the game, being in the arena tonight. The atmosphere is going to be nuts in there. I'll be back here holding it down in the city at the studio, watching the game, getting ready for the pre and post game shows. And we'll be back with everybody tomorrow, man. So hopefully you're coming back, and we're talking about Miami, getting ready for the next series in round number 2. Thanks, man.
All right. See y'all. Peace.
Appreciate y'all.